the second installment in the Neverwinter Nights saga. Suffice to say, I will not be talking about it here on this channel, and same with the Mass Effect saga. Well, moving on. The protagonist sort of fighting against the author, wrestling away the control over his or her story, breaking the established rules and certainties of that setting that I have mentioned before, making and creating, at least to an extent, his or her own, needs to be handled extremely carefully to satisfy me by me, the writer. Otherwise, I will end up with something that I do not want to create. The cultivator of the X stage beats a cultivator of the X plus 3 stage, shocking the crowd type of scenario, which is simply not something that I'm aiming for. That particular danger is mitigated in my stories by the fact that I'm not going to be using such defined power levels for this very reason and a few others, but it still very much exists and it needs to be avoided at all costs if I am to actually enjoy the story. And then again, I'm not saying it's a bad way, incorrect way, wrong way to handle this, but it is simply not the way I want to approach what I perceive as the protagonist having control and the major influence over the story. And this particular example is obviously just a fraction of what it entails. It comes in all shapes and forms, and it does not only entail fighting. I just simply do not want to end up being the puppeteer. Maybe the word chronicler might be more suitable, observing and writing down the adventure that the characters are having instead of me being a sort of a quest giver, some deity that would be this absolute power. And of course, I don't mean to become a chronicler inside of that world, self inserting myself. I mean, metaphorically, if it even is possible. Obviously, these are all just analogies, figures of speech to an extent, but definitely goals to aim for when it comes to the style of writing that I would like to achieve. And I do have to say that the conclusion that I've came to today in this video really made me happy, recording, chronicling, rather than being the one who writes, leaving as much of the real world me behind while doing so. I think it does sum up my approach towards storytelling quite well. Now I just need to transfer it into proper English, words and stuff. That will be easy, right? And now the Rapidaros, who managed to acquire a hostage in their investigation of the missing camera, and are now moving further into the territory of the Condors, looking for clues. Stealthily moving forward, everything seems rather suspicious to Mirek, but there is only one way forward, as Yarka correctly pointed out, which leads to an opening with multiple other access routes, and well, an entire horde of condors figuratively flies out, surrounds the duo, and begins an interrogation how these busybodies had found their way through the maze of mountains, And most importantly, for the Condors, what did they see on their way here? Well, Mirag honestly tells them about the short scuffle with the watch near the small pond. The leader of Condors immediately sends a whole group to reclaim the hostage and take care of the rest of the intruders who are currently sitting and loitering around, mocking their prisoner, reminding him of the futility of any attempts to escape or hopes of rescue. But those words are quickly crushed by the reality, which has the Rapid Arrows reunited, this time as prisoners themselves. Speedy just quickly sends plague, smallpox, and eczema after their captors, and then the club finds themselves in one of the smaller enclosures, barricaded from the outside behind a door where they will supposedly spend the rest of the day so that the condors can take care of their stuff, clean up something they don't want the rapid arrows to see. And that leaves our heroes with two options. Either they will sit things out, wait for the evening to be released, and take the loss, or attempt a daring escape. Their choice should be obvious to everyone, but their efforts to smash the small gate only have the effect of bruises on their shoulders so far, and the rock wall itself seems unscalable. Meanwhile, Speedy finds a tree trunk similar to those used to barricade the door from the outside, but this one conveniently placed inside of their little enclosure, and suddenly their prison cell seems to have a way out, just waiting to be used. And thus the battering using this makeshift ram begins with a big wind up, or at least as big as the area allows for. But despite their best efforts, the door holds, and so an alternative is sorely needed. So they lean it against the wall. Yarka climbs up, then they lift it up to him so that he can then slowly drop it on the other side and climb down there. He manages to remove some of the rocks and trunks that are blocking their escape route, urging for everyone to be quiet since the condors are definitely nearby. And so the search for their former captors begins. Their complete retreat seems to be a nonsense, despite them wandering around for a while, so they continue their search, and then Indra hears some sounds as if someone was using a shovel, and so they follow the sounds, and finally find the condors digging something up. The fact that the rapid arrows manage to uncage themselves leaves the leader not just baffled but also mildly displeased. Speedy explains it by the presence of a tamed condor who kindly carried them out on its wings one by one, and then Mirek tries some diplomacy, asking the crucial questions: why were the tents torn down, the camera stolen, and why are the condors so unhappy with the presence of the other clubs in their territory? And the leader relents, and we finally get some answers. Apparently, the area in the mountains is a site, a deposit of Bohemian garnet, which the condors have been excavating, and thus were scared that the other clubs will find out about this golden goose and they will have to share with them. They admit to trying to intimidate them by tearing down the tents, but firmly refused that they would have any part in taking away the camera, which then does turn out to be a misunderstanding since the girl manages to find it where one of the activities took place during the previous day, and with that, everything ends well. Reconciliation happens, and the organizers of the gathering promise the Condors that they will be leaving the next day, and thus the vein will solely belong to the Condors, with Still and Quiet returning back to their nesting ground after the disturbance is finally gone. And this is where I'm going to stop. I really did not expect to come to such an interesting, for me, an important conclusion. Definitely do welcome it because I have been struggling to put these ideas into words, into coherent thoughts, even for me. And this is one tiny step forward, and I think in the right direction. If I truly am to write something for myself that will make me genuinely happy. And well, more will come in the next video, as will more adventures of the Rapid Arrows.